hopefully with this class, you'll realize that the home inspection doesn't have to be stressful, and we'll go over all that stuff. So I want to make the home inspection through this class a lot easier for you guys as agents by how we manage it and how we set the expectation to our clients so they go in with realistic expectations. All right? So what are we going to be talking about? We're going to talk about directing your clients to the best inspectors, equipping the buyer for the inspection, advising the seller, the benefit to the seller, how the seller should prepare, things the inspector will ask for, and frequently asked questions. So directing your clients to the best home inspection. I think it starts with what is a home inspection? Oh, you come on. A home inspection is a non-intrusive visual inspection of readily accessible areas throughout the home. Most people don't know this, and most agents might not know this, and some home inspectors don't know this. It is illegal for a home inspector to go into a house and cite code in a home inspection report. If you are a listing agent in the state of Virginia, if you're a listing agent and you get a home inspection report and the guy says, this is not to code or recommend, and there's no GFCI outlets in the kitchen, this is required, and he says per code. You could, if you wanted to, you could take his report, send it to PWAR, and he'll get fined. So he will get fined. The whole reason behind that is home inspections are not code inspections. They are functionality inspections of the home, how it was designed to function. Now, home inspectors will still bring up code issues if it pertains to safety and the structure of the house, but we can't cite code while doing that. So I can say, hey, there's no GFCI outlets in the kitchen. This is a safety hazard. So just be prepared. You know, it gives you a little more negotiating power. Maybe if you do get that home inspection report that comes in and you're on the listing side and say, hey, your home inspector didn't do what he was supposed to do. He's citing code throughout. Home inspector, not code. And then you could go to send PWAR or give that home inspector, I prefer giving people like a courtesy call and say, hey, you might not be aware, but you're not allowed to be citing code in a home inspection report. So I always tell people, yeah.
What do you do with the report?
What do you do?
If it does cite code.
Oh, I would, if it were me, because a lot of, so as of July 1, 2017, all home inspectors have to be licensed. Part of that licensing, if I want to do a foundation inspection, if I want to do a pre-drywall inspection, if I want to do a final walkthrough inspection, not only do I need to be licensed, but I have to have a new residential structure as part of my certification. So if you look up Joseph Donofrio on PWAR, you'll see NRS specialty, or new residential structure, and that'll be a specialty, which allows me to do these classes. So what did I have to do? I had to go to an 8-hour course in Fredericksburg. Now you can do it online. And I thought I was going to learn something cool about new construction. And what I learned was home inspectors, well, I always knew this, but we all talk about how we're not allowed to cite code, even on new construction, but ways around that we can still bring up issues that are safety hazards or part of the structure of the property. I was shocked. I was sitting there with 29 other home inspectors, and I was shocked that a lot of them didn't realize that they weren't allowed, that home inspections weren't code inspections. So I'm sure it still does happen. So if they haven't taken that course and they don't know, or they haven't studied the laws, which they may not because a lot of us are busy, I would give them a courtesy call and say, hey, just so you're aware, you're not allowed to be citing code on the home inspection report in the state of Virginia. All right. So a home inspection, we've been in business 17 years, and when I first started out, I was a little bit younger, and a lot of my friends hadn't bought houses. You may still think I'm young, but a lot of people hadn't bought houses, but a lot of my friends hadn't bought houses, and so they would say, Joey, what do you do? And I'd tell them, I do home inspections. And a lot of people, I would get this response all the time, does that mean you pass or fail houses? And we don't do that at all. We should never be giving our opinion on inspections. We should never say, I would never buy this house on an inspection. We are educating the home buyers on the house that they're purchasing, and hopefully a positive, informative manner. Because 98% of everything we find is manageable stuff. I always tell people, I wish my life was an HGTV special. Sadly, it is not. Those are outlying situations that we see. And so it's like basically giving your house a physical check, going to the doctor and getting a physical. If you go to the doctor, they're going to get a physical, they're going to say, hey, blood pressure is a little high, we need to work on this. Maybe cholesterol is a little bit high, and they're also going to tell you what's good about your health. Hey, well, you're doing this great, you're eating good. Same thing with a home inspection. You know, we're going to look at the furnace, and we might see signs that, hey, something's a little bit off, and what are we going to do? We're going to send you to the specialist. You're never going to go get a physical, and then they're going to tell you have cancer. They shouldn't, right? They're going to send you like, hey, something in your lung doesn't sound right. We need to send you to the pulmonologist. So we're never going to say, and we should never say, HVAC's 15 years old, probably's got about a year left. You would hate to go to the physical and say, hey, you're 80 years old, you probably got a year left, right? Unless there was something very wrong with the system. And we're not the specialist that's going to tell you those kind of things, or we shouldn't be telling you those kind of things. So it's like giving a physical checkup. If problems or symptoms are discovered, we may recommend repair, replacement, or further evaluation by a specialist. So the home inspector, as we know, especially if you've been in business a long time, home inspections, they vary in knowledge, customer service, and professionalism. You guys as agents are like entrepreneurs. You have, in your mind, a level of service that you want to provide your clients. It would be so foolish for you to then partner up with people who don't deliver the same customer service and the same professionalism that you want your clients to experience. And I hear this a lot more than you would think. Well, I use this home inspector because he's my brother's best friend. Oh, he's my wife's brother, but you know what? He's a great guy, but sometimes he just says the wrong things. That scares me. This is your business. I love doing home inspections, but I love my family a lot more. I love I like what the home inspections provide for my family. And if I let somebody come in my world of business and deter that, and I'm losing business because of that person that's not doing what's right for my family, no one works for free. You know? So you want to make sure that you're surrounding yourself, whether it's a home inspector, a title person, a loan person, that's delivering the same professionalism, the same customer service that you're providing to your clients. At the end of the day, my goal as a home inspector is to do a great job for your clients, and I want them to use you on your next transaction, and I want them to say, wow, that home inspection company was so good, I'm going to use them on my next transaction. All right, so that's our goal. That should be everyone's goal. We live through referrals, and we know and bad news travels so much faster. You have to ask people for good reviews. The bad reviews just show up. No one asks for those; they just come. You know. Important questions to ask your home inspector is: has he or she been professionally trained? There are two major organizations that home inspectors can be affiliated with. One is the American Society of Home Inspectors, known as ASHI. The other is INTERNACHI, which is the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. There used to be an organization called NAHI, which was the National Association of Home Inspectors. They no longer exist, and a lot of their members, if they upkept with their membership, went over to INTERNACHI, so they got absorbed by INTERNACHI. ASHI is the oldest organization. They've been around since 1974, so if you've been in business a long time, you've probably heard of ASHI. INTERNACHI started on the West Coast and been around since 1994. ASHI has about 7,000 to 8,000 members. INTERNACHI has about 20 to 25,000 members. So they're both very good organizations, and it's very important for home inspectors to be affiliated with one of the two, because that's where home inspectors get their standards of practice. In the state of Virginia, before July 1, 2017, it was voluntary licensing, meaning that if I was a builder, I could then stop doing that and start a home inspection business and just not, without any training, go right into home inspections. Which is scary because, like we said, home inspections are not code inspections. So if I've been a builder on new construction, what are the things that I'm looking at that a home inspector might not? Hey, well, the floorboards are upside down. The seller needs to remove all the flooring and put those floorboards right side up, right? That's a code issue. But is it still functioning? Is it making noise? Why does it have to be flipped upside down? So that's where we differ from a home inspection standpoint, is we're looking at functionality of items. If it's functioning, why replace it? If it's not broke, why fix it? How much experience does he or she have? How many years? I think years can sometimes be misleading. I could say I've been doing home inspections for 17 years, but I only did 40 inspections. Well, I was doing it part-time, you know? But I think a better number, especially for home inspectors, because we're going from homes that may have been built 1800s, 1900s, 2000. That's like so much technology, especially with how quickly technology has changed in the last 20 years. There's a lot of components to a house. Our company's been in business 17 years and we still see new stuff. We don't know everything. Sometimes we show up and we're like, I don't know what that is. And it's okay to admit it as long as we do our due diligence and we get the answer for your clients and are able to provide what that is. So I think a lot better question is, how many inspections do you do? How many inspections are you doing a year? How many homes are you seeing? That's so much more valuable, in my opinion, than experience. You know, we all know, hey, well, this agent's been in business 30 years, but they've never progressed. If you're not growing within your industry, whether you're doing home inspections, real estate, you're dying. You either go up or down. No one maintains. So if we're invested, how many inspections are we doing? Is property inspection their only business? They say a snake with two heads is always lost. So is that their sole focus? A lot of you that may have started in real estate, maybe you started part-time and you knew how hard that was. Very difficult. And then when you went all in, you're like, oh, it was the best decision of my life. Business started picking up, things started getting a lot better. Do they belong to any professional organizations? We talked about those, ASHI or InterNACHI. I'll get it a lot where I'll hear agents say, well, ASHI's better than InterNACHI. Or even home inspectors will say, InterNACHI's better than ASHI. They are both very comparable. To say one is better than the other is like comparing two apples. They're very similar, and it's very important that if whatever home inspector you're using is affiliated with one of two of those organizations because of the standards of practice that they provide. So the home inspection is not like a free-for-all. Are they required to complete continuing education? So with the new licensing laws, continuing education is every 2 years. We have to do 16 hours of continuing education. To be a member with ASHI and InterNACHI, continuing education is every 3 years. To be a member in good standing with one of those organizations. Questions to ask. So when home inspectors apply for licensing, we have to have a minimum of $250,000 general liability insurance. But what we don't have to have is errors and omission insurance. It's not if a home inspector is going to make a mistake, it's when they're going to make a mistake. Hopefully I never have to use error and omission insurance because the deductible is $5,000. Wow. But I think it is so important for home inspectors, because we are dealing with most people's largest purchases, that we have errors and omission insurance. We are all human beings. We all fall short. And if we miss a major defect, and it's $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, we want to make sure that we're protected and that your clients are ultimately protected. I can't speak to what companies will do in those situations, but hopefully they have the insurance that if it does get bad, that they're there to help your clients and to solve some of those issues. What is the structure of their company? Are they likely to be around 2 or 3 years from now? Were they around 2 or 3 years ago? We don't think of these things until we have the home inspection. If you're dealing with a single-man shop, they might be hard to get a hold of during the day. So if they do an inspection for you in the morning, and then you're meeting with your clients that afternoon, but they're still on inspections, and now you have this really important question to ask them, and you're calling, and you're unable to get a hold of them. And you have to submit the addendum by 9 o'clock that night, and you can't get a voice on the phone. That can be stressful. You know, oh, they better call me back, and you're blowing up, you're texting them, you're like, better call me back, better, I need you. So how accessible are they throughout the day? Were they around, like we said, are they likely to be around 2 or 3 years from now? Are they going to do an inspection for you and then vacate to Florida and then you're never going to hear from them again? So that last inspection, if issues arise, are you going to be able to get in touch with them? And were they around 2 or 3 years ago? What's the stability of their company? What to look for in an inspection company? Ease of scheduling. You know, it's 2018. A lot of stuff can be done online now, through text messages, through phone calls, through email. So is it easy to schedule appointments? Our time is very valuable. Longevity, stability, reports that are clear and understandable. I think that's very important. You know, most people don't know the lingo of a home inspector or a contractor. And so I think the best reports are in layman's terms, have a lot of photos, videos, and that are clear and understandable for the client. I had a listing agent get mad at PJ, she's upstairs, because she walked into a real estate office, and the listing agent, I didn't even look at the home inspection, I just thought it was so ridiculous that the report was 90 pages. Well, if you did an inspection with us 17 years ago, the report would have been probably like 20 to 25 pages and included no photos. They're longer now because of the photos and the videos that are now in the inspection report. So don't necessarily judge it by the photos, because I agree with agents too. sometimes you get these reports and it's like a book, and you're like, how do I even understand this? I think those are ridiculous. I think handwritten reports are ridiculous. Before we started doing inspections on iPads, I used to write out my notes and then I would type it into a computer. My buddy comes over and I had like my old note sheet sitting on the countertop. And I'm looking, and he's looking at it, he goes, how do you even read this? And I'm looking at it now like a week later, and I'm like, I can't even read it. Because it's so in my memory that I'm just jotting it down that I'm able to quickly translate it to the computer. So handwritten reports, I can't understand it. Sometimes when I'm doing these classes and somebody signs in cursive, it is so hard for me to understand because I was the generation that we started, when they started teaching us cursive, we started learning, and then they want everything to the computer. So we stopped doing it. So my cursive was bad, and my understanding of it's bad. Professional demeanor. How professional are they? How professional are the people that are answering the phones when you call in or your clients call in? That is a reflection of the company and the experience that they're about to experience. I always tell people that I hire, I was on an interview today, I'm hiring an inspector, and I said, I care more about your customer service than your knowledge on a home inspection. Because if somebody likes you, they are less likely to complain about you. It's the truth. They are less likely, but if somebody doesn't like you, you could do the best home inspection, but if your attitude is horrible, they will find fault in what you're doing. And I told him, I said, I love the phone calls I get when you may have made a mistake, and the realtor said, I didn't even want to call because he was just such a great guy on the home inspection. But I think he just might have been a little distracted that day and might have missed something. That is such a better complaint than, oh, he was a jerk and then he missed this, and this. And then we look at it and we're like, that's not even part of a home inspection. But they're finding fault in everything that he does. So customer service is essential, and being professional. How you represent yourself is so key in comprehensive insurance. So inspection format, what inspection format is used? What should the report contain? If items are checked, why are they checked? If items are not checked, why? Why aren't we testing air conditioning in the winter months? That should be labeled, not just marked not inspected. Right? Why aren't we able to test hose bibs when it's 20 degrees outside? Why are we not inspecting these items? Does the report contain items not functioning as designed? So maybe the air conditioning is functioning, but it's not cooling properly. We're not getting a good temperature differential. Maybe the furnace is functioning, but there's a lot of yellow flames, and it needs to be checked. So why is this not functioning properly? What's going on with the issue, and who needs to be? Where's the solution going to come from? Is it a licensed HVAC contractor, licensed plumber, licensed electrician, especially for those big ticket items? So inspection format, the typical standard is we're going to detect, we're going to describe, and then we're going to provide a direction for resolution. We might not know the solution, we might not know the exact solution, but we at least need to know who can solve the problem and what the outcome will look like. When will the report be available? I truly believe that it is 2018, and I'm living in the current era, and a home inspection report should be delivered either the same day or right after the inspection. I was getting window measurements the other day from a company. I got three companies came in. 2 did handwritten. The other guy came on an iPad and was able to provide a quote right after based on, because he had already programmed it in the computer, where probably the other guys had to then go back home, program all the notes that they had taken, and then give a quote for the windows. Who looks more professional? Who looks more impressive? And that's probably why he had the highest quote. And I didn't go. Right? But it was like, wow, and it encouraged you up. Like, oh, this guy's great. If you weren't 20,000 higher than the rest of the guys, maybe. yeah. Everything was going good until the quote. So when will the report?
iPads are expensive.
Yeah, iPads are really expensive. So when will the report be available? How will it be delivered? Are they printing it out? Are they mailing it? Are they email? I think most people are emailing it or printing it at the time of the inspection. Will the inspector be readily accessible for questions about the property or the inspection after the report? Or do they have somebody at their office who may be a home inspector who can answer questions about the report? Because say you're meeting with your clients and that inspector is unavailable, you kind of went over this, maybe he's on another inspection, can somebody at least get an answer to your questions while you're meeting? Again, things we don't think about until we have those questions and we're like, I wish I would have gotten an answer right then because I was with my clients. Equipping the buyer for the home inspection. So this is probably one of the biggest things and probably the most important things to making your lives and the home inspector's life easier during the home inspection. I think when you set expectations with people, it makes everyone's life easier. In any area, in any aspect of your life, if you can set expectations and people know what they're getting into, it'll leave you with a lot less headaches after the fact. What I mean by that is, we can set the expectation to your clients if they're the ones that call in, but typically the agents sometimes call in to schedule. So we set the expectation when they call into our office. They're starting to build like an expectation with what they're going to expect during the home inspection. Our home inspector then shows up, gives his driveway presentation. I think a lot of companies will do that. What are we going to be doing during the home inspection? What is our routine during that home inspection? But before that, who has built a relationship with them, or who is in the process of building a relationship with them because you guys have been showing them homes, is you guys the real estate agent. So I think when you guys are in the process of showing them homes and they start looking at things, they're like, oh, that window's fogged up. I think when they start pointing out maybe flaws of the home, that's a perfect time for you to bring up the home inspection and say, hey, but remember, we are getting a home inspection. And it's not, and we're really looking for those big ticket items. Our whole goal for the home inspection is for you not to move in and then spend thousands of dollars. But expect, he is going to be bringing up home maintenance items, normal wear and tear. And that's part of being a homeowner. No house is going to be in perfect condition, and home inspections really aren't cosmetic inspections. And I think if you set that expectation with your clients of what it is and what it isn't, because they just might know from watching HGTV that they get these perfect homes, it'll save you headaches on the back end, it'll save your home inspector headaches. I can't tell you how many times I've showed up on a home inspection, and I'll start walking around the outside, and I'll be like, oh yeah, you got gaps in caulking, the grading a little, you need to cut back the plants and all this stuff, and I start pointing out things, and the first question out of their mouth is, but the seller's going to fix that, right? And that tells me that the conversation hasn't even been had. And it is so much harder to back somebody off the ledge when they're on it than to push them. Yeah, right? Yeah. It really is. So setting the expectation is you push them. So setting the expectation. I was telling that because sometimes I'll do presentations and listing agents, I can tell who the listing agents are because they're like hounding me about how do you handle this situation? How do you handle this situation? And there was a primary listing agent that was sitting in, and he was watching me answer these questions from other listing agents, and he said, you know what I do? Because it's all about setting that expectation. I'm not saying to do this or that it's right or that's wrong. I'm just sharing an experience of another agent. He said, when the buyer's agent calls me, because you never know who that buyer's agent's going to be, whether they just started in business, whether they're professional, whether their buyer is dictating them, or they're in control of their buyer. He goes, when I get that call for the home inspection, I then pick up the phone, I call the buyer's agent, I say, hey, so glad you booked the home inspection, that date's going to work perfectly. I just want to let you know that my sellers are only going to fix major ticket items. So if you just copy and paste the summary on the inspection report and send it over, I just want you to know I'm sending it right back. And so he's setting an expectation. Again, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just sharing an experience of somebody setting an expectation, and it's working for them. So what does that buyer agent then do? Calls their clients and says, hey, just so you're aware, I just got off the phone with the seller, and they're only going to fix major ticket items. And so now everybody's prepped, because as you know, they can get very emotional during that buying process. And so if we're setting the expectations beforehand, everyone starts to begin to understand what to expect. Alright, so most inspection companies will have an inspection agreement. Part of that inspection agreement might be a link to their standards of practice. There will be some sort of scope of inspection, what's included, what's not included. It might limit their liability up to the inspection fee, and that is just very standard in our industry because, again, we're dealing with $100,000 worth of homes. A lot of inspectors are going to have limitations up to the amount of the inspection fee. Are outbuildings, pools, spas, guest houses included, or is that a separate fee? The last thing you want to do is say, oh yeah, the home inspection is going to be about $500. They call in and order the inspection, they're like, you said it was going to be $500. They just quoted me $1,200. Because not only did they get the home inspection, but they got the pool inspection. They got a radon inspection. They got a mold inspection. They got all these auxiliary inspections. Maybe there was an apartment above the detached garage. That's another fee. So just be aware of when you're putting a contract in the home and they have all these other things, that fee might be a little bit higher. You know, again, things we may not think about. Oh yeah, it's just a home inspection. Oh, but they wanted the pool and they wanted all this. They wanted radon. So just be careful when you're quoting inspection prices. All right. What if the inspector finds problems or concern? We definitely will. And it's not, and it's not to prove our worth, but no home is perfect. I love when I show up to a house and the sellers are like, I can't imagine what you'll find. I'm like, oh God. That means it's going to be worse. Well, oh no, why'd you say that? I don't want to be here for 5 hours. Right? So we will, and set that expectation with your buyers, right? If they want to buy a brand new home, there still will be issues on the home inspection report, and they're going to pay a premium for that brand new home. Everyone has different budgets. All right, so
sellers really believe that, like, oh, my house is perfect.
I know. You walk outside, look right side of your house. No, but it's funny because sometimes you'll show up to a seller's house, or you'll be doing an inspection, and you look at the outside, and you're seeing wood rot, and you go to the side, and you're like, oh my gosh, they never did anything. And then you walk inside and it's like immaculate, like brand new floors, bathrooms are redone. You're like, they just never paid attention to the outside. You know, they never left their home. You know. But we will find concerns, so prep them for that. Say, hey, no house is perfect. We're going to find things, but 98% of everything that he finds is manageable stuff. You know, and that's why it's important. It's not our job as an inspector to persuade them whether to buy something or not to buy something. I don't know what they can afford. I don't know the nature of the deal, nor do I care to know. I've never negotiated one real estate deal. So why am I giving my opinion on whether they should buy? Because I don't know their finances. I don't know anything. But I can report on it, you know, and I love that. Even when we're selling services, and somebody says, "Do I need to get a rate on it?" I provide them the facts of why they need to get a rate. Well, 30% of houses with below ground basements have levels of radon 4.0 or above. If you go to a slab, it almost cuts it in half to about 17–18%. And I give them that information, and I say, and it's up to you if you want to make that decision and get a radon test. Same thing. We can just provide them information, and then it's up to them if they want to purchase. I love that. Joey, should I buy this house? Well, if I had money, I would buy it too. Like, you know, I don't like it's not a good question. But again, there's nothing that can either be fixed or replaced. Right? Buyer freakout syndrome. I think if we set the expectation, if you're using an inspector that you trust, that can manage the situation, manage the home inspection, we're going to avoid killing deals. You know, there are certain times where we do a home inspection, the buyers don't go ahead, but it's not because of our attitude or our opinions that predicate that. All right. But if we set those realistic expectations, I think a lot of those deals that maybe have been killed won't be, because no house is perfect. Should the buyer attend the inspection? Definitely. It is their time to learn about the house and be educated about the property that they're buying. If they're unable to be there for the whole time, hey, can we get there at the last 30 minutes? So you can go over the summary so that maybe the inspector, if he finds something big, he can show it to you so you can actually see it, be there for it. But just be respectful of his time. You know, we don't want him to redo a whole inspection. So just let your buyers know, hey, he's not going to redo the inspection, but he will go over points and things. I had one of my inspectors, he was like, Joey, the guy showed up right at the end and I spent another 2 hours with him. And I'm like, why? Why didn't you tell him you had another appointment? He goes, well, it was my last inspection of the day. I said, well, you still have to go home. You still have an appointment at home. So you say, yeah, I have somewhere to be. I have to be home. Your time is valuable. And it's not, I mean, don't let them take advantage. Provide good customer service, but that doesn't mean get taken advantage of at the same time. Does the client need to be present for the whole inspection? Like I said, at the end of the 30 minutes. Sometimes you have the last 30 minutes of the inspection. Sometimes you have overseas buyers, or maybe they can't be there, or maybe work's too hectic. Can we get them on the phone at the end of the inspection? So that home inspector, again, if you trust the home inspector, so that home inspector can then go over the issues with your client, because I think it comes so much better coming from him than if he doesn't get a chance to talk to the inspector. The inspector just sends the report, and he's looking at like 40, 50 issues, or what he thinks, and potentially, and he's like, oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. And the home inspector was unable to put it in perspective, so now he's having a conversation with you, and you're like telling him, oh no, it's all good. No, the home inspector. He goes, well, no, this seems bad. I need to talk to the home inspector.
Absolutely.
right? And so we're calling that home inspector anyway. It's so much easier, I think, for you guys if the home inspector has that conversation first, and then you're able to do it. Now, if you get a home inspector that your client's got and you're like, this guy is crazy, my clients are not talking to him, well, that's why you want to work with people that you trust. You know, so you make sure you're working with people who are guiding your clients to hopefully companies that are trustworthy. Who should the buyer bring to the inspection? Anybody who's not going to be a distraction during the inspection. So I've seen it all. I've seen families come, like 10 people, and what happens is when families come, they're showing the house off, and they're not really paying attention to the inspection. I've seen kids show up, and I have 2 kids of mine. I love them. But I tell you what, if my 2.5-year-old was with me on a home inspection, it'd be up and down, I would be able to focus, like I need to focus on the home inspection. And I would be doing myself a disservice by having them there. So make sure that you tell your clients, you can't tell your clients not to bring their kids, but like, hey, just avoid bringing any distraction. Or if you have to bring your kids, can somebody come with you to watch them while you're doing the inspection? Bring the babysitter. Yeah, bring the babysitter. And you guys don't have to be the babysitter, right? Yeah, no. So don't bring distractions. Every inspector doesn't know everything, and a good one will admit it. I was doing this for 17. I've been doing this really almost since my dad started the company 17 years ago. So when I was a kid, like I never could not work because I lived with my dad. And so he'd always be like, no, you're working today. You're working today. It didn't matter what I was doing. And so I remember this one agent, we did about 40 inspections with him a year. He was very busy. He was single man. He didn't have an assistant. He just did it all himself. So he was really busy. But I remember asking him, I'm like, Kevin, what's your secret to your success? Because I was just curious. I was in high school. I was like, well, how do you do it? And he goes, you know what, Joey? He goes, I never pretended to know, and when I was asked the question, I never pretended to know an answer that I didn't know. And what I realized was I built trust and respect by admitting to that. Some of us think that if we don't know something, we're not as professional. We're not as an expert as we are in what we're providing, and that's not true at all. You know, I've taken some real estate classes. I can't imagine that you guys know every little detail of the real estate. Like, you know, there's questions that come up all the time. And same with the variety of houses that we see. We're not going to know all the answers. But as long as we can admit that and be humble enough to admit it, and then find the answer, or at least point them in the direction to get the answer, I think we've done a good job. And what I've seen, is you build a lot more trust and respect that way. And they're more likely to be like, hey, this guy, you know, he didn't know it, but he got the answer. Rather than like, oh yeah, I know, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, you know when people are BSing and they don't know. Like, you can see it. Like, I don't think he knows that. What's wrong with him? Alright, so we should be able to point the client in the right direction to solve any mysteries or anything. And good inspectors provide solutions, or at least a path to the solution. We might not know the exact fix. We might not know exactly how to fix it. And we really shouldn't. I mean, my brother-in-law is a mechanic, and my father-in-law is a mechanic. You put them to work on the same car, they'll produce the same outcome, but they will fight tooth and nail on whose way is better to get to that same outcome. Same thing with contractors. You put 3 or 4 contractors in the room, they're going to have 3, maybe 2, 3 different ways on how to fix that one item and why their way is better. But as long as the outcome's the same, that's what we're really caring about. So we're not like telling you exactly how to fix something, but rather, hey, this is what it should look like when it's done. Explain to the buyer their options for dealing with conditions that inspector may discover. So hopefully this conversation is had before the inspection. Hey, when he finds stuff, what are we going to be doing? Are we going to ask for a credit? Are we going to get them to fix some things? What are we going to be doing? Who is responsible for any property damage caused during the home inspection? If your buyers caused the damage, I think they are responsible for it. If the home inspector caused the damage, they are responsible for it. We were doing an inspection, and the guy brought one of his friends with him, and I think something was in the evaporator coil at his house that caused him to get sick. So I don't know, I forget what it was, or mold, but something had happened with the HVAC system. So he's in and I think something may have been loose in his house. So he comes to his friend's home inspection, and he's in the utility room, and he is banging the evaporator coil, like hitting it, and we're like, You really shouldn't do that. And he got like mad and his friend had to ask him to leave. So make sure that we're not causing damage, and if they do, then they're going to be responsible for the damage that they caused, right? Same with an inspector. If we cause damage, which sometimes we do, sometimes we put a ladder up on an attic access and the trim piece falls. Sometimes you think you're stepping on something solid and all of a sudden your foot goes through the ceiling. Sometimes you're removing an electric panel and the paint, even though we have razor blades, the paint pulls off. Maybe you're screwing in a electric screw, and even though it's a flat end, it's not pointed, the thread hits the wire and it pops. You know, if we cause damage, I'm talking from experience, from what things that have happened, we're responsible. We should fix that. You know, we cause damage, we own it, we fix it, and we make it right.
That's why you have insurance.
And that's why we have insurance. Hopefully nobody dies in the process. That's not a phone call I ever want to get. Should the seller have immediate access to the report? I know in Virginia, if you send over the addendum, you do have to send over the home inspection report. But for us, as a home inspection company, we will not discuss the inspection report in front of a seller, in front of a listing agent, at a home inspection. Sometimes we get listing agents show up and, well, I'm just here for the summary. We're like, oh, cool. Hey, well, excuse us because I'm going to go over the report with you out there. You have to go out on the deck, or sometimes you have to go downstairs. Or maybe the sellers are there, and they're trying to be savvy because we work for the buyers and the buyer's agent, and it's their report. They get access first, and then it's up to them if they want to pass that along to you. Not to us. And even if the seller has questions or a listing agent has questions about the report, we require that we have to get written permission from the buyer or the buyer's agent saying that we're allowed to talk about this issue with the listing agent. What had happened, we were hiring schedulers and transaction coordinator, and somebody that wasn't part of the contract called asking about the home inspection, and she thought she was doing a great job, and she sent it to the home inspector. The home inspector picks up the phone, starts talking away about the home inspection report, and he ended up he was talking to the seller, not the listing agent, but the seller about the home inspection. So you can imagine how upset the buyer's agent was about that. So now we have a strict policy. If their name is not listed on as a buyer's agent or the client, we need written permission to talk to them. Even if it's like a contractor or something, hey, just let us know we can talk to this guy. He's a contractor, he's your best friend. Just, we want an email that we can discuss that with him. Time span of inspection. Inspections really should take about 2 to 3 hours. 4 hours if it's a bigger house and the client may have a lot of questions. If home inspectors are staying in a set routine and following the standards of practice, because it's important that we follow our standards of practice, they should really take 2 to 4 hours. I've heard stories, I'm on inspection groups, of home inspectors taking 5 hours, 6 hours. To be honest with you, I've been doing this a long time. I don't know what they are doing on the home inspection if they're taking that long. I really don't. They're going way above and beyond and being crazy in a house. You know? So it either tells me one or two things. They're talking a lot about nothing. Or they're new and they don't have a routine, or they're not staying in a routine and maybe it's their only one day. Our time is so valuable. We have to be respectful of our time as professionals and your guys' time as real estate agents. No one should be sitting at a home inspection for 5 or 6 hours on a 3,000 square foot house. Even a 5,000 square foot house, that's crazy. Now there are outlying situations where we may do an estate property where there's multiple buildings, and that may take a little bit longer. I know I can only speak to our company, but if we are doing a larger house, 5,500, 6,000, we tend to send 2 inspectors to always make sure that we're in that 2 to 3 hour range. But estate properties, I mean, you could send 2 inspectors, and if there's multiple buildings that are older, and maybe they're built in the early 90s, those can be all day. There's a lot of stuff going on, but again, that's not every day. Our normal time frame is probably 2 to 3 hours on a home inspection. The summarization at the end is the most important part. So even if they're doing measurements and all that stuff, we always try to get them to at least see like where filters change, where their shutoffs are, all that stuff. Because sometimes you'll get a buyer that may say, no, I'm going to do my measurements, I don't want to follow around. All we can do is encourage. We can't force people to do stuff. But at least we can show them the major components and where those major things are, and then they can start measuring. You know, it might be pretty boring to watch somebody open and close a window and test an outlets and all that stuff. But as long as they know how to work their major components and major systems, that's important, as well as what did that inspector find? What's the summary of the inspection report? Make arrangements for the inspection fee. When we first started, all we took was check. So how does that inspector get paid? Is it at closing? Is it at time of inspection? Most people are going to get paid at time of inspection. My dad started a business with a college, didn't start, he started along, my dad started a business and his college classmate started a business in Pennsylvania. My dad started in Northern Virginia, home inspections. He started in Pennsylvania. He got paid at settlement. My dad got paid at the time of the inspection. He's now no longer in that business because he would say, he goes, how do you get paid? It's so hard to get money from these people. He still, and my dad was talking to him the other day, he still has $80,000 of outstanding. Wow. We probably have a couple thousand. You know what I mean? So it's so hard to trace money. So a lot of inspectors will get paid at the time of the inspection. Advising the seller. What is the inspector going to do, not going to do? What are they going to be doing in your seller's home, in that home? Always follow our standards of practice. When will the seller get a copy of the report? When the addendum gets sent. So that we will not, as a home inspector, we're not going to give that information, or we shouldn't be giving that information without permission. What are the potential ramifications of inspector findings? Conditions are disclosed. I was on social media, and these two guys, I think they were flippers or whatever they were doing, but it was scary to me because they had a platform, and they were telling agents that they should never get a pre-listing inspection. And not that I care for the monetary value of getting a pre-listing, and they said because then conditions become disclosed, and now you know about it. Wouldn't you want to know if there's like $40,000 worth of damage before you take on a listing? Because here's what can happen. If you take that advice and you take on a listing where you're like, looks a little sketchy in here, and you don't do some due diligence and you don't know about that issue, clients move in, maybe it wasn't caught on their home inspection, clients move in and they realize, oh my gosh, there's like $50,000, $60,000 worth of structural damage. What happens? They're going to talk to an attorney. What's the attorney going to do? Sue everybody. And even if you didn't know, you are going to be out thousands of dollars for the year, 2 years that it takes the judge to make a decision. So just be very, very careful with advice out there. I think if you're taking on a listing, you'd want to know about those things. You'd want to know if there's something major. I'm not saying that every house needs to do a pre-listing inspection, but if you're taking on a listing, you're walking through and you're like, maybe we should get this so I know what I'm working with here. So we know. Because, you could cause a lot more trouble and spend a lot more money if not. So just be cautious of that. Some findings may be negotiated between the buyer and seller. Some conditions may be corrected. A lot of times this is going to be discussed what happens after the home inspection. Some houses are as is. Some houses you're going to be able to negotiate on your buyer's behalf. Inspector's responsibility to the seller. We're going to respect the property. Do no damage, and we're going to try to leave the property as best as we found it. I think it's also important because you guys are the representative there for the clients and you're letting the home inspector in the house. Make sure that all the doors are locked. Make sure that all the lights are off. Just don't rely on the home inspector. I know for us, we try to do our best. We try to help. Make sure that the heat's not on when it's 80 degrees outside. Make sure there's some, do your part too. It's not don't leave it up to the home inspector. I mean, I think from our standpoint, it's our responsibility as well, but it's a mutual responsibility that we're leaving the home as best as we found it. I'm not saying that you have to put every blind down. I think the home inspector needs to do some stuff too. So make the home inspector do it. Say, hey, put the blinds back as they were. That wasn't like that. Tell them. Did you mean to turn the oven off? Yeah. Wait, so that's the worst question. Every time I'd be leaving it, sometimes I'd leave a house and the realtor would be like, Joey, did you turn the oven off? And I'm like, now I gotta go back in. Like I thought I did, but now that you said it, I gotta go back. They go, no. Yeah, did we turn the oven off? Sometimes that can be scary. If an oven's left on, that can be scary. Be very, very scary. Answer the seller's questions about the report after the report has been issued. Some courtesies may be offered depending on the agreement between buyer and inspector. Copy the report to seller and or their agent and an explanation of the findings. So this is if you're the listing agent. Make sure all utilities are on. Because what happens if they're not? We got to come back, and that delays. Maybe you need an extension on the contingency period. We can't completely inspect. Maybe there's an additional fee, so it's more money out of pocket. property access. The seller should advise the inspector or buyer items or areas that should not be entered. It shouldn't be found out at the time of the inspection why we can't go in a bedroom. Doing an inspection and there was 2 very sick kids in a bedroom. I didn't want to go in there, the buyer's agent didn't want to go in there, and the buyer didn't want to go in there. Thank you. I didn't want to go in there either. And so what if it could be an incomplete inspection? You know, they were really sick and they're coughing and it was dirty in there. So we don't know, right? Or if the door's locked, like why is it locked? Well, they have really fragile stuff in there. We didn't want anyone in there. Or maybe they have like a bag of money. Who knows, right? Why are we not allowed to go in there and make sure that's discussed before the fact? Right? Prepare the property. It might sound obvious, but make sure that attic accesses, crawl spaces, electric panels, closets, garages, gates, yards are unlocked and accessible during the home inspection. Sometimes we get to a property and the attic access is in a closet, but there's a shelf right there, and then there's tons of stuff on the shelf. So that shelf actually has to be removed. Sometimes we can't get to a water main because it's the storage area and there's so many boxes that are blocking the water main. We really can't move people's belongings because we don't know what's in those boxes. We don't know what type of furniture that is, if it's an antique. If I move somebody's furniture and I break it, and see, they don't notice that it's broken until you move it. And they're like, no, it's broken. I'm like, I think that was like that, right? I was doing an inspection for a seller that was going to list their house, and the attic access was in the middle of the room, and there's a bed frame that was blocking the way. So the seller comes in, she goes, "Oh, I'll help you move the bed." Move the bed frame, and this is just a bed frame. It wasn't that heavy. Move it back. She calls me a week later and says, "Joey, you broke my bed." I'm like, how do you know what side it was? Like, how do you know it was me? Like, are you crazy? Like, are you kidding me? I didn't say, are you crazy? But she was very eccentric. Yeah. I thought it. I was like, take your medication today? No. And so and so, you know, but she was eccentric, and I think she was just like talking about it. She wanted a mold inspection, but she ordered a mold inspection from us. But you have to be so careful. That was a person that said I could move their belongings, and I moved it with them, and then was accused of breaking it.
So what happened?
Oh, she was fine. She was. It never. I think she wouldn't pass it. She was on her next thing a week later. So we ended up, the point is she called us again for a service, which I was shocked. I was like, "Oh, she gave me a break in her bed frame." And she calls us again. Nice. So we just don't know. I mean, that's the whole point. We don't know, and like I said, we move something and people notice that it's moved, and now they notice that the handle's broken, or they notice something. So we just have to be very, very careful when moving stuff. But make sure there's clear accesses to furnaces, water heaters, all that stuff. Remove animals from the premises. I love pets. I love dogs. I have 2 dogs. My wife loves pit bulls and all sorts of types of dogs. I'm dropping a radon off at a house. But not everyone might love dogs. You know, the buyer that's buying the house might not love your pets, even though they're family to you. I'm ringing the doorbell. I had the code to get in, so I was like a lockbox or like the combo code to get in. Dropping the radon. I ring the doorbell just to make sure no one's home, and I hear barking, and I like just back up to see what kind of dog from the main level, and it's a white pink-nosed pit bull. All right. Again, I love dogs. I like pit bulls. But I'm like, I'm not going to walk in his home and get bit in my butt. Like, heck no. Call the listing agent up, and the listing agent, "Oh no, he's so friendly." And I'm like, now I think I got to go. But you know what? I went in the house. I probably would never do that again. I went in, I was like trying to be friendly, and he was more scared of me than I was of him. And it was one of those townhouses where you walk up, walk down, and then there was another little. So as I'm walking up, he backs up and he's just like low looking at me. And when I started going back down, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get bit. I know I'm gonna get bit. And I did. But what happens if somebody wasn't comfortable or wasn't crazy enough to do that? He might not be able to come back and drop the radon the same day. He might have to wait another day, 2 days, and that's more. And radon you have to let sit for 48 hours. So that's more time that goes by. So be careful. Another time I was doing an inspection, and they had cats, and they said, "Please do not let the cats out." And so I'm like, okay, cool. Finishing up the inspection, I get done and I notice there's a cat in the front yard. I look back, there's one cat inside. I'm like, oh no, the cat got out. And so I'm chasing this cat around the front yard. And while the buyer's agent's trying to get a hold of the listing agent, and then she comes over and she goes, oh no, Joey, they only have one cat. And I'm like, oh great. The neighbors probably think I'm so crazy because I'm chasing their cat, and they're like, look at that guy chasing their cat around. Or worst case scenario, I pick up the cat that was outside and put him inside. And then the buyers come home like, how do we get another cat in the house? Just be careful, you never know. So things the inspector will ask for: contact information, property details. Typically all this stuff is covered when you call into an inspection office. They're going to get a lot of this material. For us, when you call in schedule inspection, the inspection agreement gets automatically emailed out. Payment link gets automatically emailed out, so your buyers have that information. So a lot of times it's signed. Sometimes it's paid for before the inspection, but sometimes clients want to know how the inspection goes before they pay, and that's very understandable. What's their payment like? Do they take cash, check? Do they take credit card? If they take credit card, do they take American Express or Discover? A lot of times those are higher fees, so make sure that your clients, oh, well, I have all that as American Express. So make sure those things are known for your client so they can pay from those choices or whatever your inspector provides. Access to the property, make sure there's access, utilities on, and pets removed or crated up, because we want to respect the pets. We don't want them getting out. We don't want them harming anybody. You know, maybe they bring their kids and the kids are very scared of dogs. You know, we just don't know. Frequently asked questions. Most inspectors do not prescribe how something should be repaired, but rather what the end result should be. Repairs vary widely in quality and price, and one typically bears no relation on the other. I think it is extremely unethical for a home inspector to quote prices to fix things in a home inspection report. He can give, he can say, oh, I think it's going to be like $200 to $300. But if he's putting it in an inspection report, to me that's unethical, because I have not taken, and I've taken a lot of home inspection courses, I have not taken one course as related to home inspections that ever told me how to estimate repairs. If I do an inspection in DC, and then I do an inspection in Winchester, those repairs are going to vary extremely. A bathroom remodel in DC is going to be like $8,000. In Winchester, it's going to be like $3,000. So it's not my place to quote repairs. How my company gets around that is we have a repair request builder that you guys can utilize as the agents. And what that does is you can put like, oh, we want these items to get a credit for. So you can use repair request builder and say, I want a credit for these list of items. And then it'll take you to Home Advisor, where you can type in the zip code and it'll give you like the low price, the high price, and the average for that repair. So that way you're not at least calling contractors, maybe it simplifies it. But we should not personally be giving quotes for cost of repair. And there may be several different acceptable repair methods that can vary widely in cost. So if your clients do get a contractor come out, they get quoted a price, make sure you're getting a few prices, because they do vary widely. My dad used to tell a story, the water main line, copper pipe, broke from the foundation to the water main on the street. He got 3 quotes. The first one was $5,500. The next one was $4,700. The last one was $2,800. So very, very widely in price. So make sure you're getting a few quotes, or your clients are. And home inspectors cannot do repairs. Every inspection course that I've ever taken, home inspections, termite inspections, radon inspections, lead inspections, has always said, well inspections, it is a conflict of interest for me to find something and then fix it. Always. And I don't really see it too much on the home inspection side of things. I see it a lot with mold, termite, all those things. And really, I think the worst is mold. People are finding mold, and then all of a sudden it's like a $10,000 fix. It is a huge, huge issue. There's no regulations on mold in Virginia. I could probably set up an air quality test in this room and convince probably half of you that there's a mold issue. And then you begin to believe it, you'll be like, oh, my throat's getting scratchy. I feel it. I feel the mold. And mold's everywhere. For any professional, and I'll just talk about mold for a second. Any professional calls something mold, whether you're a home inspector, you're a contractor, if I say that is mold, I have to have tested for it. I can say it appears to be mold. It looks like mold, but I can't say that it is mold without testing for it. Black mold is not a type of mold. There are types of mold that can be black. But if somebody comes in and said, "Oh, you got black mold,"
Yeah.
it's the worst. They either have no idea what they're talking about, or they're trying to sell something. Why we had that in our head is the media outlets about a few years ago made a big deal about a type of mold called Stachybotrys that can be black. So they called it black mold. And so now we think of it as being really, really bad. But just know that if it's black, it needs to be tested so we can understand what type of mold it is and how it will affect your health. Okay. Is a home inspection a guarantee? No. It is a snapshot of the home on the day of the inspection. It is a snapshot of the home. It's not going to be perfect. You know, your clients are going to move in. I did a home inspection on my house. Probably a week later, I'm down in the lower level bathroom and the sink's dripping continuously. It's running. I'm like, we did the home inspection. Right? Like, I want a refund. But that's part of being a home ownership. I bought a house 20 years old. I'm going to find things now that are going to have to require a $100 fix, $200 here. And prepare your homeowners for that. You know, where you're going to find little things. You're going to move in, an outlet's going to stop working. A GFCI is going to go bad. Your dishwasher's not going to drain. It's going to be clogged. You're going to discover those things. That's just part of being a homeowner. We just want to avoid the costly thing. We don't want you to move in and then you're spending $3,000, $2,000, $1,000. But you may have to spend a couple $100, and that's homeownership.